They're kinda old and they're not perfect, but they fly really well. Hey there, I'm John. This is Two Brothers RC, and this is our first combo review covering the FMS 1400mm F-4U Corsair and P-51 Mustang. They've been out for a long time. They've got some issues, but it's hard to argue with how well they fly. So let's dive into it and see how they stack up to the no patent pending Two Brothers review system. Before we get into the maneuverability section, let's start by giving you my actual opinion of these two airframes. They're obviously very old, and they suffer for it. These planes, in my view, should have been upgraded to a new motor before flying them. I would suggest that you don't bother flying on the stock motors. If you're going to fly either one of these warbirds, you should be upgrading them to at least the 4250 580 kV motor, which is a drop-in replacement and won't destroy the four-bladed props by spinning too fast. If you can get past the lack of thrust that both of these airframes have, you will be pleasantly surprised at how great they fly. It's actually shocking how good they fly in the air. I didn't think warbirds would fly or land this smoothly, but it's really unfortunate that they're continuing to be sold in the state that they're in. It's almost like FMS is trying to tie Freewing's record for selling an underpowered pile of garbage in the shape of an F-14 Tomcat 80mm. Speaking of flying smooth, let's take a look at how these two warbirds hold up to the maneuverability metrics. For the P-51, it doesn't require a gyro to fly. I know this because I flew it thinking that I had set up the gyro, but actually hadn't done it at all, so it flew pretty well without it, including this maiden landing, which again is gyroless. It was a little touchy in some respects, but that's nothing you couldn't fix by running a slightly heavier battery further forward in the aircraft. Tail dragger warbirds do tend to fly better nose heavy without a gyro in my experience. That's a pass. The F-4U didn't require a gyro either. In fact, it flew pretty good with the gyro disabled so long as you kept the pack shoved forward where it belongs. The Mustang was definitely not prone to accelerated stalls. I was doing a lot of rolling lines and rolling circles and had no issues with pulling the elevator too hard, which is where it might want to try to bite you. At most, all it did was slide a little and recover instantly. That's pretty awesome, and a pass. But like any airplane, I don't recommend that you go around trying to figure out how slow you can get it with flaps and gear dropped. I promise you, it probably won't end well. With regard to the Corsair, I didn't notice any stall-prone issues either. Both of these airframes are remarkably light for their size class, and that goes a long way toward making them stall-resistant, which is another pass. Both of these airframes do take off and land without struggling. In fact, it's very easy to do if you're used to landing a warbird. And if you're not, well, I've got a tutorial plan that'll teach you how to do it coming up soon. But for now, taking off is pretty simple so long as you give it rudder input as you feed in throttle to keep it tracking straight down the runway. That's a pass for both. Where both of these planes get dinged is thrust. They don't have adequate thrust for most maneuvers, which kind of sucks. This is actually kind of rare to say because most planes do come quite overpowered, but neither of these handle like a fighter aircraft. They handle more like the thrust-to-weight ratio of a J3 Cub instead of a Corsair or a Mustang, which both had significantly more power than either of these models are displaying in my view, and that's a fail. I did upgrade both aircraft to the 4250 580 kV motor, which is identical to the size of the stock motors, but spins a little faster, which gives them a noticeable improvement in thrust without changing the wing loading, which is perfect for these two warbirds. I don't suggest flying them on 6 cells or upgrading them to a heavier motor or ESC combo. Keep them light so they won't stall easily. It'll make your warbird experience better overall. Stall recovery in every situation that I could experience was pretty easy. From accelerated stalls to intentional upsets like tumbles and pseudo pop-tops, both planes recovered from stalls quite easily and didn't fight me at all. They both pass here as well, and both airframes earn a 4 out of 5 here. Moving into the flight time section, both the Mustang and Corsair can fly for quite a while, but not for the full 7 minutes of time that I'm looking for from warbirds. Admittedly, this is an entirely arbitrary metric because the only person who determines what an acceptable flight time is gonna be you. But I think that 7 minutes is a solid benchmark for a top-scoring electric warbird, and I can't say that these two hit that high note. They both come in with a 4 out of 5 here, flying for an average of 6 minutes overall on SMC 2900 HV2 batteries charged to 4.2 volts per cell. So, moving into landing gear, here's where the two airframes really start to pull away from one another. Let's start with functional wheels. Obviously they both pass here because you've been watching them land throughout this entire video. However, they're both rock-hard wheels, so they fail this checkpoint because the wheels transfer all of the force of landing directly to the fuselage. Though less so in the case of the Mustang because it has a suspension system which does pass, while the F-4U has a fake suspension, which makes me angry and doesn't pass. The Mustang and Corsair both required low maintenance on the retracts. Neither of these two airframes had any issues with the retracts operating, which does pass. The entire gear system on the Mustang worked flawlessly. The gear doors functioned as expected with no weirdness or oddities to note. The gear doors in the Corsair started to fail, however, because one of the gear door servos was overheating and burnt up on me. Normally, I would just look past this because this sort of thing is a one-off experience that you can reasonably attribute to mass manufacturing, but then I realized that the gear door servos are probably the hardest servos to replace that I've ever seen in a model aircraft. I didn't bother filming this because I'd need a fourth hand to hold the camera and a third hand to hold the servo while I use my remaining two hands to run wire leads through impossibly small passageways. But suffice to say, I simply ripped the gear doors off and removed the servos because they're just cosmetic anyhow, and that's a fail for the Corsair. The Mustang earns a 4 out of 5 in this category, while the Corsair earns a 2 out of 5. Before we move on to the fit and finish and avionics sections, consider scrolling down just a little bit and hit that like button for me. If you're not already subscribed to Two Brothers RC, definitely consider it. And if you're not part of our Discord chat server community yet, hop down to the description below, join up and chat airplanes with us. We now move back to a single combined score for the fit and finish and avionics and lighting sections. No more dual scores because both airframes have the same score in the final two review areas like they did in the first two as well. First up, neither airframe had any paint issues that I noticed. They both look great and that's a pass. Neither of these two airplanes had any issues with the foam quality either. As you would reasonably expect from FMS, the foam is dense and very good looking out of the box. Pass. Both airplanes feature foam hinges, which is very unfortunate and a fail, but they did hold up to the flying that I was demonstrating here, so maybe it's not that big of a deal. Still, it is a fail. And they both feature stickers instead of decals, which is another fail. However, both airframes feature airflow to the battery from the front of the airframe through a hole in the tail, so you won't have any issues with battery overheating. That's a pass and a 3 out of 5 for both of them. Also, to fly the F-4U, you need to either use Velcro to stick the battery in place or come up with a contraption like this, which keeps the battery from moving or flying out of the plane under any maneuvering you might want to perform. This piece of wood and reinforcement is a mod that I did, which also required doing some cutting to the side of the plane to get the ESC out of the way so the canopy would close. No Velcro needed. Hop on Discord if you want some help with this. Now, hold it upside down.
I ain't going nowheres.
Still in there. Our final category is avionics and lighting, and once more we're sticking to a single score sheet for both airplanes. Both the Corsair and Mustang feature metal servos which are reasonably fast enough to fly a warbird, and they're precise and strong. That's a pass. The ESC had zero issues with overheating, even with the upgraded motor that I'm running on the stock propeller on both airframes. That's a pass as well. They both contain lighting, and the lighting appears to be correct, with a port and starboard light that are both red and green, with landing lights in the wings on the Corsair. That's a pass as well. Neither airframe has easily replaceable servos. All of the wing servos are glued in place with tape covering the servo leads. The elevator and rudder servos of both airplanes are screwed in place, which is great, but the vast majority of servos are not that easy to replace because they're glued in, and that's a fail. The motor mount does appear to be robust and well designed, so long as you don't crash the plane nose first and bust it up real good. Replacing the motor with the upgraded unit linked below was painless and simple, so give it a shot if you want some additional thrust for your warbirds. That's a pass and a final score of 4 out of 5 overall in this category for both airplanes. The P-51 earns a solid 19 out of 25, which isn't bad, but there is certainly room for improvement. Out of both of these two airframes, I do think the Mustang is the clear winner in every regard overall, and is the plane that I would personally recommend that you get if you're in the market for a warbird and you don't just want to have a Corsair. It's an old design for sure, and it has some annoyances like having to screw in the control horns on the control surfaces, but it flies really, really good, and it looks awesome too, and it's a solid plane to fly if you're looking to develop your warbird flying skills. By comparison, the F-4U earns a 17 out of 25, which is one of the lowest scores we've given anything on this channel, and is on par with the B-1 Lancer twin 70mm from X-Fly. It's definitely an old design, and it's got many of the same issues that the P-51 has, but in some cases, they're worse. The only thing really holding back the score here was the issues I ran into with the gear doors and the servos operating them. Otherwise, it flew pretty damn great, every bit as well as the Mustang, just with more of an annoyance factor. But you can't be too picky when it's only $379 right now on sale, so at least it's not horribly expensive for a model aircraft of this size. And there you have it. Two great flying warbirds, one review, and my thoughts on the matter can now be considered closed. Huge thanks goes out to our channel members on twobrosrc.com/supporters, and a very special thanks goes out to our mega fans, Sarasota RC Squadron, Michael Smith, JR Man, Todd, N411X, and Jeff Baker, along with our ultra fan, TBRC fan. You guys kick so much ass. Coming up next week will be the Hangar 9 J3 Cub 2-meter wingspan monster of a plane. I begged Horizon Hobby for months to send this over to me, and they finally did. And you're gonna love how amazing this thing flies. See you next week.